Hey everyone, Shane here with etrailer.com. Today I have a 2013 Ram 2500 and I'm going to walk you through how to install the B&W above bed rail kit for fifth wheel hitches. Not only are these going to be compatible with your B&W fifth wheel hitches, but they're also going to be compatible with some of the gooseneck adapters. And what the gooseneck adapters are, it's a plate that fits right over the top. It has feet that slide down inside and get pinned in, and it has a gooseneck ball on it. So you really have availability for not only pulling a fifth wheel, but also pulling a gooseneck if you need one. These are going to be a very durable steel construction with a gray powder coat finish, so they're really going to hold up well in all weather conditions. These are not only compatible with your short bed Ram, but they're also compatible with the long bed Rams. This is what our brackets look like that mount to our frame rails underneath the bed. We're going to have two pieces. You're going to have one for the back rail, and you're going to have one for the front rail that mounts on the outside of the frame rail, and you're going to have that on each side. Same construction, very thick steel with a nice gray powder coat finish. This kit is going to come with all the hardware necessary to get it installed. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's walk through how to get it installed. To start your installation, it's a good idea to go ahead and lower your spare tire. Look underneath to make sure when you drill holes into the bed that you're not going to be hitting anything or damaging any wire or anything. Once we determine that, we're going to come up top and we're going to measure from the edge of our bed up to find the placement for our rear rail. Now, depending on your bed size, the measurement is going to be different, so you just want to make sure you follow the instructions for that. We're going to go from the edge of the bed, make sure you're going from the edge of the bed, not the tailgate, and we're going to measure up per your bed size, and we're going to put a mark. I'm going to do the same thing out on the outer edges. We're going to line it up on those marks, and we're going to be doing the very back edge. Then what we're going to do is we're going to measure wheel well to edge and then wheel well to edge to make sure that our bracket is centered on our bed. A lot of times you can just judge it by the center hole and your lower corrugation in the center of the bed, but I would rather be sure before we drill any holes to make sure we're in the right spot or as close as possible. Once you have your bracket squared, we're going to take a hole punch and we're going to be marking our holes that we're going to be drilling out. On the ends, we're going to be doing the two inside ones. So inside here, most rear, inside in the front. This most rear one here in the center, and we'll be doing the same thing here, which are going to be our two inside. Take our hole punch, we're going to try and center that as best we can. Get some mark, and we're going to do that to each one of the holes. So it's kind of hard to see the hole punch on there, the spot. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a highlighter, I'm just tapping where that hole is, and what it's basically going to do is going to kind of highlight where the hole is. Just kind of put a ring on it. That way you're not putting a big yellow mark on a black bed. I'm going to take a small drill bit. I'm going to drill a pilot hole. We're going to do that for each one of our mounting locations. The back hole here, or the most forward hole on the outside, is actually going to be directly over the hat channel. So we're going to make sure when you drill in, you're going all the way through the hat channel to the bottom side. So our hat channel is pretty far down there. My drill bit is not actually long enough to get down there, so what I'm using is it's basically a pick that has a point on it, because we want to make sure that hole going down through the bottom is straight. So I'm running the pick down to where it hits the bottom. I'm going to make myself a dimple in the hat channel, so when I open this hole up, I drill that hole, it's going to be straight. We're going to take our driver's side rear bracket. It's going to look like this. Support bracket or a stiffening plate. It's going to go on the back side like that. It's going to meet this hole and this hole. We're going to take U-bolt. We're going to feed this bracket right up like this. right up to our hat channel. We're going to take our U-bolt, we're going to come to the outside of the frame rail, bolt to the top, I'm going to feed it through these two holes. So our U-bolt goes through this hole, which is through the stiffening plate and the bracket itself. You're going to take your 4.5-inch bolt, you're going to have a square washer in there. Let's see if I can pull it off here. It's got a square cut in it. I'm going to put that on, come to the outside. There's a hole right up here in this plate. We're going to go through this hole and all the way to the inside, which is actually through the bracket as well. We're going to hold our bracket up tight against the frame rail, against the hat channel. I'm going to look and see where our 1/8-inch hole is that we drilled, our pilot hole, and see if it's centered inside. If it's not, we can go up and we can move it. For this one, it doesn't look like, I got a little bit of a dimple there, but it's not really big enough, I don't think, for me to see it from the inside. So what I think I'm going to do while I'm down here is I'm going to go ahead, mark this, and then I'll drill the 1/8-inch hole down here on the bottom. That way I know it's going to be straight at the top and the bottom. So if you have to do it this way and drill out the small hole in the bottom of the hat channel, if your drill bit's not long enough to go all the way from the top down through, just use a pilot hole. The reason is because what I did is I centered that in the bracket hole, and that hole is oblong. What we don't want is we don't want to drill this hole out to the correct size and then it not be straight with the hole on the top, because then your bolt, when it comes down, is going to go in crooked. So with the pilot hole, now we'll go up top, we'll drill out our holes on the top to the correct size, see if that hole down to the bottom of this hat channel lines up centered with it, and then we can drill this out to the correct size. We're going to do the same thing here on the other side. So we're going to start by drilling out our back 3 holes, the most rear ones. We're going to be drilling those to 9/16. What I like to do is, you can use a drill bit that's 9/16, but we're going to be drilling a couple different size holes. So what I like to use is a step bit, and I like having one of my bolts handy, and I'll start drilling out the hole and I'll drill it just big enough where I can slide this down in there. That's what we want. We'll go ahead and repeat that for our 2 remaining holes. For our 2 holes that are going down through the hat channels, if you're using a step bit, grab your pipe spacer. You're going to have a couple of them in there. We're going to drill this hole out big enough that this pipe spacer will drop down inside that hole. If not, if you're not using a step bit, you're going to drill it out to 7/8. That's what we want right there. Once we get our top holes here drilled to the correct size, go ahead and clean up your shames, and we're going to come back and we're going to spray it with some Rust-Oleum paint. Keep that from rusting. What I did is I dropped the spacer down in, and I'm looking down in there and I can see my hole. My hole is actually inside of this ring, but it's off a little bit to the side or towards the edge. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to come over about an 1/8 inch this way. I'm going to open that up to the same size as we opened these up, to 9/16. I'm going to do that from the bottom. That way, when I open it up, it'll be centered with my spacer. Once we get our holes drilled, we're going to come back and reinstall our brackets under the bed. For our U-bolt, we're going to use the nut with the serrated edge on it. We'll come back and reinstall our 4.5-inch bolt, carriage bolt. On the inside, we're going to use a flat washer, a lock washer, and a nut. The only difference between our driver and our passenger side is the bracket on the back is going to be different, and we're not going to be using the support bracket on the back side. We're going to go up over top of our exhaust hanger. Install our U bracket. For our U-bolt, we're doing the same thing with flange nuts. Make sure you put your spacers in. Come back and set our bracket in place. Our two longer carriage bolts are going to go down through the spacer, through the hole in the hatch channel. For our back three holes, we're going to use the shorter carriage bolts. For our outside two holes, we're just going to use the carriage bolt itself. For the center one, because it's in drop corrugation, we're going to slide a spacer. This is a U-spacer, U-shaped spacer. Looks like that. We're going to slide it in here. That just keeps our corrugation from collapsing when we tighten everything down. Next, we're going to take a U-shaped bracket like this, or plate like this. This is the same as we installed on the top side. Where this bolt comes down through the bed right here, the lower corrugation is on the bottom, or it's actually raised from here. But because this plate spans between those two, we need to get this inside of here around this bolt. We're going to get that U-shaped open space around there. We'll push it up. And I hand tighten the two nuts on the U-bolt. Just like that. For our hardware coming down from the top of the bed, we're going to use a block washer like this. A flat washer, lock washer, and a nut. We're going to do the same thing over here on our driver's side. We'll loosen this up, drop it down. Because this bolt's coming down through the corrugation, or it's raised right here, we need to put another U spacer, and then we'll install our hardware the same way we did on the other side. Got a small flat one, or the square flat washer, round washer, lock nut, and hex nut. To install your forwardmost rail in the bed, you're going to need the base for your hitch. You're going to set your base for your hitch in place in your rear rail. Get the feet into the forward rail or the front rail. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our base and we're going to push it back. And then we're going to pull the rail forward as much as you can. Once you get that, you just want to make sure it's centered. And then we're going to mark our holes that we're going to be drilling out. The holes on this forward rail are going to be in different locations than on the back one. If we start at the very front of our rail, it's going to be the very inside one on each end. On the back side of the rail, from the outside, we're going to go to the second one in. Back side, we're going to do the very center one. Once you get them marked, go ahead and remove your base, remove your rail, and we're going to drill these out. One thing I do want to caution you about is on your driver's side, the two holes you're going to be drilling towards the cab. Make sure you're careful with those because your gas tank runs right along the inside of the frame rail right here. Make sure you're just not jamming it through there. Once you get your pilot holes drilled, we're going to come back, you're going to open them up to 9/16. Once you're done drilling them out, make sure you spray them. You're going to take your smaller carriage bolts, and anywhere where you have a drop corrugation, you're going to use one of your U-shaped spacers or blocks. Which means you're going to have one here, one in the center, one on the opposite side, on the back side of your front rail. So we're going to be using the support bracket on our driver's side only for our front one. We're going to line up like this. It's going to go on the outside of the frame rail. It's going to come over and sandwich up against the frame rail like that. We're going to take this hole and it's going to line up with the bolt that's coming down from our front rail. Our U-bolt is going to go from the inside of the frame rail out. We want to make sure we're not sandwiching any of the wiring or anything like that. For a U-bolt, we're doing the same thing with flange nuts. For our bolts coming down, this one and then our one in front of our hatch channel here, it's going to get the same hardware combination that this one has. Block washer, flat washer, lock washer, and a nut. Next, we're going to come back with a 3/4 inch socket. We're going to tighten all of our hardware. We're going to tighten everything coming down from the bed, or coming down from inside the bed down, and then we'll tighten our U-bolts going through the sides. Once you get everything tightened, we're going to come back and we're going to torque it to the specification and instructions, following the same order. Bolts coming down through the bed, you torque first, then you torque everything holding the brackets onto the frame rails. Once you have everything torqued down, you can go ahead and reinstall any of the components you may have removed, and you're ready to go. It's going to do it for a look at and installation on the B&W above bed rail kit on a 2013 Ram 2500.